back to the Good Success Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Culler. We got Tom Olson, president of Good Success, sitting right here next to me. And today, Tom is going to be the star of the show. I think that this topic is absolutely amazing. And so Tom actually prepared something for the company. I don't know if you intended on pushing this out to everybody, but I think the first time that you got it out was to the company in one of our city hall meetings. And I actually mentioned this on a podcast before, but it was admirable because Tom got a flat tire that morning, was supposed to present this at the city hall meeting, but instead shot a video while it was getting fixed and airdropped it to Becky, and she brought it and allowed us to watch the entire thing. And I thought it was absolutely amazing. So wanted to make sure that we got an actual podcast episode with this. So Tom actually has this whole script written out. So he's actually going to read it, I word for word maybe, or even close enough to it.
We'll see,
Josh.
See how it goes. I'm not sure if it's going to be read or I'm just going to animate it.
From the heart.
Yes, we'll see.
You're going to bring it from the heart.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. So I work very hard on our company, on building leaders within our own company, and for trying to educate them, but not only educate them, to motivate them, but also teach them things that I believe are important, not just in business, but personally as well. And this is kind of one of those things that I actually spend a lot of time on preparing this. And then I woke up in the morning, I found out I had a flat tire. I was like, okay, this is so important. I want to get this message out. So I actually created a video. So we're basically just going to kind of redo that right now with this podcast. I think, somewhat.
Yeah. So you have it titled, well, on here it's Christmas. Christmas is coming. Are you ready? So it's either that or are you ready for Christmas? It's just prepping you for Christmas.
Are you really ready for Christmas? Right. You know, so
no, I mean, are you really ready?
Are you really ready for Christmas? So
yeah,
that's what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. So we're going to come back around to that, but before we do, if you guys haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the Good Success Podcast. We're on all the podcast platforms. Just go search for us. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you would. We would much appreciate that. And let us know what you think about these shows. And then the Good Success Mastermind coming up February 4 through 8 in Dallas, Texas at Quest Trust Company's office down there. You can learn more about the group at goodsuccess.com/mastermind. We've had plenty of Good Success Mastermind members on this podcast. So just go look for them, and they'll be on there. I mean, it's probably every other one that we've had on this show. Every other interview has been a Good Success Mastermind member, and they can attest to the group. It's an amazing group, great culture that we have down there. So make sure you guys check that out. We would love to have that. Have you join the group? Go to goodsuccess.com/mastermind, fill out the application there, and you'll get on the phone call with either myself or Tom. And then the Community Go-Giver event is coming up in June, so June 26, 27, 28. And we actually interviewed Jim Ingersoll on a podcast just yesterday. That'll be going out soon for you guys to see. And then Josh Belk, who again will be going out to see for some tax information. That'll be coming out next week. So this is coming out week before Christmas, and then the week after Christmas is when you're going to get all this tax information from Josh Belk. But he'll be speaking at the Community Go-Giver event, and both of those guys actually spoke last year. We have some returning speakers, but we also have a lot of new awesome faces that you guys are going to be very excited to hear about. We'll have full details coming out very soon, so be on the lookout for that. But you can get early bird price tickets right now at communitygogiver.com. So make sure you take advantage of that, and be on the lookout for those details coming up very soon. You guys aren't going to want to miss it.
And so just talk about the Community Go-Giver. I understand, and I just want to apologize. I know that it's kind of hard for us to articulate what the Community Go-Giver event's all about, and we're trying our hardest. We even had like a little meeting this week to try to help communicate the message better. But that's really because it's a different success for everybody. You know, good success is different for me as it is for Josh, as it is for you. And to me, good success is about doing the right thing, and it's about having the right kind of success. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today, too, with Are You Ready for Christmas? Is are you going to have the right kind of success? But really, at the end of the day, what I want to encourage people to do when they come to the Community Go-Giver event is to use real estate to have a positive impact on their communities and leave that legacy. And that's kind of hard to communicate sometimes because most marketing is communicated in a way of all of your pain points and all the things that you kind of like are struggling with, or how you're going to make money. And all those things will be taught. But for me, like what's at the heart of it for me is for the Community Go-Giver event is to help encourage people to good works and help to encourage people to have the right kind of success, which to me is using the gifts and talents and time and treasure that God's given you to be able to have a positive impact on this world and on your community.
Absolutely. And that very well said. We definitely appreciate that. And hopefully that makes a lot more sense to you guys. But we'll, again, be having full details coming out very soon. So be on the lookout for that. CommunityGoGiver.com is where you can learn more about our event and get the full details as they come out, but also purchase early bird price tickets. So Tom, let's get into this. I'm excited because the entire time that I watched the video at the City Hall meeting, I'm like, man, this is awesome. This is so helpful. And honestly, you have this for Christmas, but I think it could be for any time of the year, all the information that you have here. But definitely something that I wanted to make sure was shared on the podcast for our audience here, and not just for the City Hall people. I know you posted that video in the Good Success group for our mastermind members, so that was great. But let's talk about this. So are you ready for Christmas? Coming up soon.
Well, Christmas is like a time of year that all the movies, all the lights, all the sparkle, it's supposed to represent Jesus. It's supposed to represent that, Jesus is the reason for the season. It's supposed to be a happy time. It's supposed to be a time of getting together with family, right? I bet you almost every single person out there probably has some kind of party or an office party or a get together with your family or spouse's family or somebody. You're going to get together. It's supposed to be the happiest time of the year, right? Even there's songs about it, the happiest time of the year. You see all the lights glittering downtown Chicago and downtown in your city, and you just think that it's supposed to be the happiest time of the year. However, for many people, it's actually not the happiest time of the year. It's actually, a time of the year that they mourn the loss of a loved one, or they mourn the loss of a relationship. In fact, did you know that the Christmas and New Year's season is actually the deadliest season of the entire year? And in fact, January 1 is the deadliest day of the entire year. And I believe it's because we find ourselves in all the glitter, we get lost, we get hypnotized by all of that, and we forget about what really makes us happy. Tony Robbins kind of talks about the art of achievement, which is what a lot of people want to talk about. They want to talk about how to achieve and how to be a better achiever and how to make more money or how to do whatever that is. And then there's this other side that really we live with on a day-to-day basis, and it's not the art of achievement. It's actually like the process or how do we find fulfillment. And to me, it's kind of like happiness in what you're doing or joy. And, doing some studying, on joy myself, if you guys have already listened to me a little bit, joy is going to be my 2019 year of the word of the year. And if you guys have anything on joy, please send it to me. I want to read it. I'm really going to be studying that word in the whole year next year. But for me, I'm looking at what makes people happy. In studying and doing so, I've kind of come across some things that I think will prevent that suicide rate from being crazy, in your life, and for you to kind of go away from those feelings and kind of understand what makes us have not those feelings of just not being fulfilled, but what makes that depression set in, what kind of keeps us from having those thoughts and maybe going down those trails that we really shouldn't be going down in this Christmas holiday season. So, it does. So some of us, we might have had a great year this year, and a lot of times, you find that the people that commit suicide are like what you would think are the most successful people, right? They've got money, they've got fame, they got a great job, great marriage, whatever it is. Like they have all these things that most people think that they're successful on, which again is why we have the company Good Success, because that's not what makes people successful, but they're not happy because they can't put their head on the pillow every night and know I have good success. I know that I have wholesome, I have family-friendly fun. I've got things that I know I can share with people. They're doing things that probably they shouldn't be doing sometimes. Maybe they've gotten drunk. Maybe they've gone overboard and done things that they shouldn't have done, and then they live with regrets. But I think a couple things I've gotten written down here that I'll share with you today. It's helped me, and if it's helped me, I hope it'll help you. So why are we not happy? And what can we do to help become happy? And like I said, this is something I struggle with. So I'm preaching to the choir of one here, as well as trying to help as many people out there as I possibly can today.
I'll help you. You're preaching to the choir of two.
Okay, good. So two. I'm preaching to the choir of two
choir.
here. So the first place that I have found that we prevent ourselves from being happiness or from having happiness is that we look for happiness in all the wrong places, right? So a lot of us look for happiness in having money in our bank account, or having a high IRA account, or having a retirement account, or having freedom of time, or living the abundance lifestyle, having so much extra that having lavish things, purses, material things. Some of us look for happiness in our job. Some of us look for happiness in money, in our marriage, or other people, relationships, a paycheck. Some of us look for happiness in a drink, in a bottle. Tony Robbins kind of talks about this. He kind of makes fun of it. Like we live in a box, we go in a box to go to a box, job, to eat a box lunch, to come home and try to find happiness in a cylinder. We kind of live in that world, and the Bible kind of talks about this as being vanity. And if you're filled with the wrong spirit, you can't be filled with God's spirit, which is kind of really what kind of brings us back to happiness and really what we need to have. So if we're looking for happiness in the wrong places, we're just never going to find it. No matter what earthly possessions we have, what toys we have, what earthly success and how much money we make, all those things are great to have, and they can be used as you can use those as a steward. God's given you all these great opportunities, but if we're looking for some of these things for happiness, we're not going to be happy. And I'm trying to help myself and maybe help you, not kind of go through those times of this year, of the end of the year, when we get with family. Sometimes, we just stop and we start to be selfish a little bit. You start thinking about ourselves, and normally that's not going to make you too happy, right? I know with Joshua and Hope and Strength, we're actually going to be going out on Christmas Day and we're going to be giving gifts to homeless people that don't have anything. And every time we've done that, my kids come back and they're lit up. That's where they're going to find happiness, is in giving to other people and being able to be that conduit of the things that God's given us. So that's the first thing, is we look for happiness in all the wrong places. Number two is we really have a lack of gratitude. I've never seen anybody that's about to commit suicide or that's having these thoughts of depression that you hear saying about all the things that they're grateful for. I've never heard it. If you follow me on Facebook, that during the Thanksgiving season, I actually kind of had a 7-day challenge. So I challenged everybody for 7 days to find 7 people every day and just tell them that they're thankful for them and why they're thankful for them. Don't make a big deal about it, but if it's a letter, if it was a text, if it's just a personal in-person meeting, say, hey, I just want to let you know I'm thankful for you. I appreciate you, and this is why I'm thankful for you. And I did it, and it was great. It was a good thing. But I'll tell you the reason why I do it. I do it because I know my own selfish nature. I know that I have to almost schedule those things every day before I wake up. I shouldn't say before I wake up. But when I wake up, before I put my feet on the ground, I try to thank, number one, God above for everything that He's given me. And the first thing that pops into my mind that morning, sometimes I thank God for my wife. A lot of times I thank God for my wife. Probably almost every morning I thank God for my beautiful wife who's sitting next to me or laying next to me, my children. But some days I thank God for my house. I thank God for the warm bed I'm in. I thank God for my eyeballs, the fact that I get to see. There's people that don't get to see. There's the hands that I get to work with every day. I get to smell. I get to taste. Those are things that God gave us. We can't be thankful to anybody else but to Him, and we have to give praise and glory to Him and be thankful for the gifts that He's given us, our salvation. So I always try to do that every morning, and then every day I also try to at least thank one person for something personal that they did for me, or in the business or whatever. But I always try to make it a part of my daily life and my daily ritual and routine to make sure that every day at least one person knows that I'm thankful for them. And I do this not because I'm this great, full of gratitude person. I do this because I know I have to remind myself. I have to put that in my schedule because I know my selfish nature. I know that I'm not going to do that all the time but what I'm trying to create, Josh, is a habit. I'm trying to create a good success habit, in my opinion. I'm trying to create a habit of gratitude. If you look at the definition of gratitude, or gratefulness, sorry, the definition of the word gratefulness, it basically means that you're so full of gratitude that it's overflowing, that it just comes out of you, kind of like, when you work out and what comes out of you? Sweat, right? Mm-hmm. You're so full of, the pores are just because you're working out, you're working hard, that sweat pours out of you. And that's how we should be when it comes to gratitude. That's how we should live our life. So full of gratitude and so full of thankfulness that it just exudes out of us and it just pours out of us. I think of our pastors kind of like that, and really, our nanny is like that. Lydia Wilkerson, she is just a blessing. And every day I talk to her and she probably thanks me for her job 4 or 5 times a week. It's crazy to me that and I want to be like that. I want to be that person that people think it just automatically comes out. And I want to be like a cup that's running over, for thankfulness and being full of gratitude. So and for me, I think I have to put it on sometimes. Colossians says, put on therefore as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long-suffering, forbearing one another, and forgiving one another. I think the key words there is put on. So sometimes you have to put on love or put on charity. It's not natural for everybody to give. It's not natural for you to be thankful, but you have to put that on until it becomes a habit and until it just becomes part of you. And I think that's what we need to do. And that's how we can kind of prevent ourselves from having depression and being ready for this holiday season. I believe that we want to be ready for Christmas, but you want to prepare yourself. And these are some of the things you need to prepare yourself. So first of all, don't try to find happiness in the wrong places. You're going to get presents, but you may not get the present you thought you were going to get, right? I can remember as a kid being really upset because I didn't get the present I should have got, or I thought I should have got. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to prevent ourselves from doing. Don't go into the holiday season looking for joy and looking for happiness in the wrong places. Don't get into this holiday season without gratitude. Bring gratitude into your daily life. Number 3, the third reason why we're not happy, and this is a big one. This one hits everybody, hard and hits everybody home, and that's envy. I don't care who you are, you envy something from somebody. And every day this comes into our daily life. Proverbs 27, 1-6 says, boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. Let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger and not thine own lips. A stone is heavy, and the sand weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than them both. Wrath is cruel, and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy? Envy is one of your biggest, if not your biggest enemy. If you let envy creep in, and if you believe, there's sometimes, Josh, we have an amazing mastermind. I'm telling you, I'm going to be just really vulnerable and honest here. We have an amazing mastermind, and sometimes I look at some of the guys and I'm like, man, I should have that. Why don't I have that in my business? Why don't my people do that? Or why? So, and to me, all that is envy. That's 100% envy. Open rebuke is better than secret love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. Proverbs 14:30 says, a sound heart is the life of the flesh, but envy the rottenness of the bones. Let's face it. If we're all honest with ourselves, every single one of us struggle with envy. Every one of us struggle with with keeping up with the Joneses maybe around Christmas time, or wanting to be able to have things that we don't have right now, and maybe we shouldn't have them right now, but we envy that lifestyle. We envy the party sometimes we envy friends. When I was 19, I envied having a wife. I wanted to have a wife. When I got a wife, I wanted a house. So I got a house, and I wanted a bigger house. When I got a bigger house, I wanted a bigger house. And same thing with my cars. My first car, I can tell you a story about my first car, Josh, and it was that song, Aaron Tippin, there ain't nothing wrong with a radio, right? I'm telling you, if you haven't heard that song, you should hear that song. It's a really great, song. So it was like, the horn don't work and the wipers don't, and seriously, my wipers didn't work on my car. I actually had a squeegee that I had to pull outside, and so I had that car. That was my first car. A 1987 Chevy Celebrity, I think, was my first car. I paid $250 for my first car. But when I had that car, I had it, and it was like, okay, I wanted the next car, and I bought the next car, and I wanted another car, and I wanted a nicer car, and I wanted a nicer, and that's just honestly because of envy, and it's very deceitful. It deceives us, and it lures us and makes us think that if we just have that next thing, or that whatever it is that we think we should have, it's going to make us happy, and it's a liar. Envy is a liar. And we have to keep those things from us. Solomon teaches us that envy is more destructive and dangerous than anger. And anger is something that can really destroy people and destroy people's lives, but envy is more destructive. You cannot be happy and have envy at the same time. It's impossible, Josh. So like if I look at somebody, I look at Josh and I'm like, man, he's 25 years old and he's already written his first book. I didn't write my first book before I was 25 years old. And I'm like, I'm envious of Josh. If I look at some of the people in my mastermind, I say, oh man, they've got something that I don't have. I look at Eddie Wilson, all the things that he's accomplished in his life, and I could be like very envious of him. And I'm the type of person that I'm envious of things that you would think nobody would be envious of. I see other people, and I'm like, and they give more than I give. I'm a giver, and I want to give as much as I possibly can. But sometimes that like, I'm envious of other people that can give more than I give, and that it depresses me. And I'm like, I can't be that way. I cannot be happy and have envious thoughts in my mind at the same time.
So that goes both ways then.
Right. So how do we
dangerous.
do that? It's very dangerous. We have to be very careful with that. Martin Luther King said you can't stop a bird from landing on your head, but you can keep them from creating a nest on your head, right? So that's what we have to do. These thoughts are going to enter our head. We cannot keep them out. It's impossible. You will not be able to keep these thoughts from entering into you, but what you can do is you can keep them from festering. You have to constantly push them out, get them off. If that bird lands on your head, you just let them stay there? No, you got to shoo them away. And that's what we have to do with these thoughts of envy. The cure for envy is our last point. It's gratefulness. And it's really being so full of gratitude and being so content with what we do have and not expecting anything from anybody else, not expecting things to happen, and just trusting God, which is really what we have to do in order to be happy. So the cure for envy is gratefulness. When we think about the things that we were grateful for and we express this, we become full of gratefulness and we become full of gratitude. And when we get to the point where it's overflowing, we don't give room for that envy to grow, right? So those are the first 3 points. Next point, and it kind of, I think is almost the same as envy to a certain degree, but I think it's a little different. It's a sense of entitlement. I think as Americans, we really, really struggle with this, Josh. And I'll tell you, from the rich to the poor, this does not just hit the poor. This does not just hit the rich. This hits every single human being, but it is rampant in the United States. Proverbs 21:1-2 says, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of water he turneth it whatsoever he will. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord pondereth the hearts. In the end of everything, God is in control of everything, and we have to be willing and able to trust him. We cannot, the criticism that we see on our government officials is absolutely absurd. We can't control what our government officials do, but the Bible says that God can control the hearts of our president or of our governors or of the kings. It's really sad, honestly. And I don't care. It doesn't matter who's in power. It really doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter if it's right or left or right or wrong or blue or red. You have just as many people criticizing anybody that's in power for any reason. And it's really sad to me. And honestly, the reason being is because there's so many people that feel entitled. Whether they feel entitled to a tax break or they feel entitled to a free handout at the government, center, or, whatever the case is, we feel so entitled. I had a conversation with a man a couple years ago, about a couple months ago, actually. And like, I couldn't convince him that the government should not provide health insurance. Like, he actually felt like that was a right of being a citizen of the United States, was to actually have free health care and have, the government should provide that for everybody. And I don't understand that. I don't get it. So that's just one thing. But I think so many times we get stuck and we get caught thinking that we deserve to be treated a certain way by somebody. We deserve to have respect. We deserve for somebody to give us a certain thing at Christmas time or to act a certain way towards us. Employers expecting employees to do more than what they should do, or expecting them to do. And I think employers should have expectations on employees. But sometimes we find out that there's just way too much expectation there, and employees expecting too much of their employers, or I have to have a raise every so often, or I have to have this many days off, or this many paid days off, or whatever the case is. There's such a high expectation. People think they need to be treated a certain way, and this is what keeps us from happiness. Like the Go-Giver states, if you don't put wood in the fire, you're not going to get the heat from it. You cannot, and that's how we live sometimes. We expect that heat to come before we actually put fire into something. And that's kind of how it is with our life. Until we put in the hard work, we're not going to get that thing back. And we kind of have to change our mindset about expecting things from people, or expecting things to happen, or expecting profit to happen in a business, or expecting your spouse to treat you a certain way, or your boss to treat you a certain way. You've got to put things into that relationship and put things into that before it happens. And you have to always constantly remind yourself that you are going to reap what you sow. If you have that understanding, that fundamental principle in your life, and you believe that, it's always going to go back to God. It's always going to go back to the whole reason for the season, and that's Jesus Christ himself coming and giving him of himself to be able to save the entire world, and understand that he had a plan, and that was his plan, and we have to trust in him that he knows better. How many decades and centuries went on between Adam and the cross, and understand that there was a plan the whole time. And we have to live our lives the same way, that God has a plan for our lives, whether we like it or not. And his plans are always better than our plans. So we don't like that. So a lot of times this sense of entitlement gives us, a false sense of security when we actually get something that we expect, because then we start expecting it every single time. The true sense of security is acknowledging that God is really the one that's going to give you and going to take away. He's the one that rewards the reaping and the sowing. When you reap what you sow, you're going to get what you give back. And as soon as we come to the realization that it's God that gives that back to us, it takes that sense of entitlement away from us, and we stop thinking that it's because of us, right? We can't be a good steward either without getting rid of that sense of entitlement. So who decides what you reap or you sow? God does. As we trust him and as we trust the truth and seek for the truth, we stop having our sense of entitlement and create in ourselves a sense of eternal security, which breaks down this barrier, and it really puts it gets rid of this false sense of entitlement. A sense of entitlement is the enemy of happiness. You cannot be happy and have a sense of entitlement. So like I said, a sense of entitlement is the absolute enemy of happiness. It is so bad sometimes, and we will be bound in unhappiness if we continue to have a sense of entitlement. So going through the Christmas season, being prepared for Christmas season, protect yourself from having a sense of entitlement. When we let go of this expectation, we're not only happier, but we also have an incredible ability to see past all the foolishness that happens. When we just stop and think about all the things that we don't need to be envious for and we don't need to have a sense of entitlement for, it really allows us to understand that most of what's going on, most of what we're envious about, most of what we have a sense of entitlement about is just really a bunch of foolishness, and it doesn't really matter. I heard a great quote about a month ago from a man. He said, "Get rid of everything in your life that's not going to matter in the next 5 years." And that's really most of what we worry about is really my next point, and that's foolishness. Most of the stuff that we think is so important is really foolishness. And this is the final barrier that keeps us from being happy. It's because we waste time. We waste time in foolish things. We waste time, in things that are not going to matter, that don't really matter at all. They have no eternal meaning. They have no meaning that's going to matter in 5 years. And they definitely don't have meaning in 50 years or 100 years. A fool says in his heart, there is no God. It is very foolish to first of all, not look outside of ourselves. And I talk about this when I talk about being a good steward and being a conduit, not a bucket. But, if we get to the point where we think we know it all, we're very foolish. And that's kind of the first part of foolishness, is the fact that we think we know it all. We're not willing to grow. We're not willing to self-analyze and say, how can I get better? What can I own in this situation to get better? And that's the first part of foolishness, I believe, is that thinking that there is not a God, there's not a better way, you know it all. And we've got to be able to look outside of ourselves. That's why I think networking is so important. And that's why I think opening up and letting God speak to us is so important, because he is the maker and the ruler of all. Proverbs 28:26 says that he that trusts in his own heart is a fool. Our feelings are very, very, very unreliable. And we have to remind ourselves of that, especially during the holiday seasons. You're going to have it's a very emotional time of the year. It can be very emotional in the positive way, but it can also go very emotional in a negative way. And remind yourself, my feelings are very unreliable. Maybe I should just not think about this today, and let's table this and shelf this until tomorrow. And maybe if I need to handle a situation, handle it head on with that knowledge and understanding that you can get through this and you have a God above that will help you with it. So that's the first part of foolishness. And then the other part of foolishness is just acting foolish and just doing foolish things. And sometimes, the Bible talks about when I was a child, I act as a child. When I became older, I put away childish things. And sometimes that's what it is. So sometimes all the extra partying and all the things that really aren't going to matter in life, we've got to put those things away from us. Growing up, we really just have to grow up sometimes. And even me as a 41-year-old man, I have to grow up sometimes and just act more like an adult and put away those foolish things. So first of all, with foolishness, I got to be constantly looking outward for help and know that I don't know it all. The biggest room for me is the room for improvement in Tom Olson right here. And I have to think that way. And if you don't think that way, I believe you're a fool, and the Bible calls you a fool if you don't believe that way. And second of all, put away those things that don't really matter. Put away those things and don't get upset about them. Don't let yourself get upset about those things, and let yourself be happy and just enjoy life and have that joy that God's given us in our families, and the clean, pure, wholesome enjoyment that we can have if we think about Christmas and think about like the true meaning of Christmas. James 3 says, knowing this, the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given to him. How foolish would it be for us to not ask God during the holiday season to give us faith, to give us gratefulness, to not let envy come in, and to keep us from envy and keep us from evil in this holiday season. A lot of times foolishness is just pleasure. A lot of times it distracts us from the real important things of life, and it distracts us from having that good success or having long-term success and happiness. Some of the other things that are mentioned that maybe may not be sinful, but they can be sinful if they're in excess, or if they're keeping you from doing what's right. But some of these things are sinful, so let them. Let's see here, where are we at here? So the biggest thing is keeping us from our purpose. So if these things are keeping you from your purpose, I believe that we've got to be very, very careful when it comes to these things. Them that tarry long at the wine, it says, be careful with that this holiday season. Pride. That's kind of like the one thing that will pull up envy. It's all about pride. It's all about us. And if we think that way, we're not going to be happy. Arrogance, meddling with things that we shouldn't be meddling with. A lot of times that happens in Christmas, like, oh, well, he said this and she said that. And, oh, can you believe that? Oh, and he got that. And that's all foolishness. We just let that stuff go. Rid yourself of everything that doesn't matter this Christmas season, and just enjoy Christmas for what it is. The birthday to celebrate Jesus' birth, and celebrate a new year by setting new goals and being prepared for 2019 to make it be the best, most joyous year that you can possibly make. So today, do these 5 things. Look for happiness in the right places. Develop a grateful heart that's so full of gratitude. Exercise those muscles of gratitude that lead yourself into having a fulfilled life. Root out all seeds of envy. And try to just find the root of that seed of envy and just rip it right out and say, I'm not going to be envious. I'm going to stop thinking that way. Eliminate a sense of entitlement and take responsibility for the things in your life. As soon as you take responsibility, it's like a light bulb goes off. It's so exciting. You can see a way to improve. Remember that you will eventually reap what you sow. And God is the giver and taker of all that, and you have to trust him for that. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of this are the issues of life. And for Pete's sakes, don't be a fool. Be humble enough to seek help, and don't waste time doing things that aren't really going to matter. I wish you guys all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I encourage you to go into the holidays. Don't go into the holidays with false expectations. Don't go into the holidays and letting yourself get deceived by all the Christmas lights and envy that's out there and all the things that marketers put in front of you to want and desire and get your hopes up for. But go into this year with love. Live wisely. Seek wisdom, and I believe if you'll do these things this holiday season, you will end up having a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and you'll have good success this holiday.
Man, that was awesome stuff. So many value bombs dropped in that episode. Tom, appreciate you sharing that with us. I got to add on so much stuff, but I think you said it all, and it's absolutely amazing. And one thing I do actually want to mention is with the envious thing, because I've been on a kick with that too, because I've had that problem. I feel like a lot of times envy can come with a competitive nature too, because you see, you mentioned in the mastermind, you see somebody has their business is successful in a specific area that maybe we're not successful, and you're like, man, I wish I could have that, or I wish I could have that kind of success that person's having. And a lot of times that could come from competitiveness, I feel like, because you're wanting to get to that level at some point, but that's still the danger.
In order to be an entrepreneur, you really have to want more.
Yeah.
So it's in a way like we're supposed to be content, but at the same time we have to kind of be a little bit,
you have to gauge it,
uncontent, or you have to at least want something else more.
Sure.
I think where it gauges from is where you're putting your trust in, and who decides.
Right.
And that's kind of why I kept bringing that up, because I believe it kind of goes into where you put your faith and where you put your trust. Because if you put your trust in people, they're always going to disappoint you. Mm-hmm. If you put your faith in yourself, you're probably going to disappoint you most of the time. And we have to let go of control. We have to kind of burn those bridges of that control that we think that we have, and we can force ourselves to control other people. But I think in the end, it kind of depends on why you want what you want. If you just want what you want for yourself, then it's never going to be good.
Sure. And
that's why I'm always trying to be that conduit. I know I'm probably not always the best at it, but that's really what I try to gauge my life off of, and why I do what I do. And that's why Good Success talks about that so much.
Right. Absolutely. And one quote that came from, I know it's one of your favorite books, it's my favorite book, is The Richest Man Who Ever Lived, about envy. And there's an entire chapter on gratefulness and envy and almost all these things mentioned here. But the quote is, envy takes your eyes off of what you have and focuses your eyes on what you don't have. And that's huge. I mean, and I think envy out of all these is the most dangerous because of what we just mentioned, because it's so hard to gauge it with all the thoughts that go through your mind and all that stuff. So, man, it's some awesome stuff. Hopefully you guys took notes, and I'm sure you're going to be seeing lots of micro content that comes out of this with quotes and videos and all kinds of stuff. So, Tom, thank you for sharing that with us and bringing that here. I wanted to make sure we got a full episode for the podcast here on this with the Christmas season coming up, because there's a lot of amazing things that you can get out of all these concepts that are mentioned here. So thank you for sharing that with us. It was awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on. If you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the podcast, the Good Success Podcast. Go on Apple Podcasts and leave a review if you would not mind. 5 stars would be amazing. That would be awesome. And let us know what you think of these episodes. And then you can go to any other platform and subscribe to us there. And then the Good Success Mastermind coming up February 4 through 8 in Dallas, Texas at Quest Trust Company's office. You can learn more about that at goodsuccess.com/mastermind. Fill out the application there and you'll talk to either myself or Tom. And then the Community Go-Giver event coming up very soon, actually in June. But early bird pricing tickets are on sale right now and are going to go up to retail very soon. So make sure that you be on the lookout for that. You can save a couple $100 by going to communitygogiver.com to pick up your tickets there. A lot more details to come out, so be on the lookout for that. That's going to do it for today's episode. We appreciate you jumping on, and remember to be a conduit, not a bucket.
Work to have to give.
Catch you guys on the next one. Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.